Hey guys, welcome back to the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. As I told you, I wanted to go through what I felt about the team with the assumption that we'd be like the old Steelers and, I'd have a week to get ready for our free agency signings, but this isn't the way that we're doing it now under Khan, is it? So we look at the signings that we've done so far here. Peterson for Sutton, basically that was the trade. On paper, it looks like Sutton's going to be getting paid less money. Let's look at the reality of that as we'll dive into a little bit more in this episode. But at the end of the day, I'm not a fan of it. I'll let you guys know that up front, and I'll dive into why as we go on. But look at the other signings that we've done so far. Bringing in Herbig as a guard who's more naturally at right guard, but we're going to be having him tryouts at left. And it opens up really big questions about what they're thinking about Dotson and Green. So that's going to be interesting, looking forward to a training camp. And then bringing back Kazee. So I want to start this episode by talking about the Steelers' defense, because that's where we're going to spend most of the time. Tomorrow's episode will be about the offense, and that's where we're getting Herbig. But looking at the defense, it is always, and hopefully will return to, being built around the sack. So when we look at it, TJ is obviously the big dog, but man, did Highsmith go off. And with those two, you have a lot of spots to ability to hide holes, hide eraser marks. And one of the things that the Steelers have really not recovered from in a long time was their corner play. Hayden was the best corner we had, but aside from bringing in Joe Hayden, when's the last elite corner or even good corner that we've had for a prolonged time? And you probably got to go all the way back to Ike Taylor. So we think about some of the draft picks that they've made and the high end, they just didn't work. But then we finally had Sutton come along, third round pick, definitely improved each year as his career went on. But we weren't willing to give him the $11 million per year over 3 years. And it begs me to wonder a couple of reasons why. The first is did the Steelers match it? And the argument that people are putting out there saying that the Steelers had to have matched it, they just offered Peterson 14 per. It's not really true, though. The difference between Cam Sutton's contract that he got from Detroit and what Peterson got from us is pretty night and day. Detroit is going down the road of basically buying a ring and wanting to get married to Sutton. At least that's what their contract is telling people. And the owners of the NFL tend not to lie when we're talking about dollars and cents here. But when we're looking at what we gave Peterson, there's much of this money is in the air to next year. Sure, the signing bonus he got was nice. But if you take away his base for next year and the roster bonus that he gets right before free agency, this can easily be a 1-year contract and we're done. So overall, if Patrick Peterson was on our team instead of Cam Sutton last year, would it have made a difference? And that's really, at the end of the day, what I think Steeler fans need to focus upon when we're talking about this trade. And I just want to strictly say, if Peterson was playing Sutton's role last year, does he make that interception against New England? Yes. Sutton dropped it. The very next play was the muff punt, and then New England got the ball and just sat on us. That was the defensive reason we won that. Now, I kind of treat interceptions like double plays. You shouldn't assume they're going to happen. But when it hits you like that, Sutton should have caught that ball. There's no way around that. That being said, Peterson doesn't have the flexibility to go into the slot the same way as Sutton, which means that we're going to have a need for that. And the way that the Steelers wanted to go in the last year was the fact that they wanted to have the 3 safeties rolling with Kazee, Edmunds, and Minkah. The thing was, the 3 of them were never healthy enough together to be out there until the very end. But what we saw when they were out there was essentially Edmunds taking out the middle of the field, primarily against tight ends, and he's amazing at it. That's why we're so good against tight ends. And I hope in the very near future, Edmunds comes on that ticker saying returning as a Steeler. That would be absolutely fantastic. because what they're trying to do is build a triangle of safeties in the middle of the field there to negate the fact that our middle linebackers ain't any good. And when we do that, it makes a lot of sense. Edmunds is a great player. The fact that they brought him back last year for basically nothing is amazing. And they can do any amount. Quite frankly, any realistic dollar amount to Edmunds, I'd cut that check right now because of his value to this team and the importance of the defense. So we kind of covered on the things that Peterson isn't compared to Sutton, but let's compare what he is. He's a guy who brought in 5 interceptions last year, which is obviously amazing. But more importantly, he's a guy who can blanket someone out of the game. And that's truly what the Steelers have been missing since Hayden left. There's no doubt about it. Cincinnati is not going away. They are keeping Chase forever. And if Peterson can prove he can take Chase out of the football game, that by itself might be enough to win the division. Now, we look at him, Peterson does have all the intangibles. He's tall, he's wiry, he has the knowledge of the game. He's going to be tested. And for all the people out there going, he's 32, Joe, he's 32. You can't be relying on a 32-year-old. I get it. That's not the recipe for success. It's not even really the recipe. The Steelers are building the rest of their team. But at the end of the day, if you can take Chase out of the game, you just equalize this division. Because of what I just talked about yesterday, the Ravens are kind of in implosion mode. We're really got to be focusing on Cincinnati here to get this division back. And the way to do that is you got to take Chase out. Now, there's some other parts of this defense that need to be covered. There's no way around that. We do not have a viable middle linebacker. We did not sign the Edmunds from Buffalo. And for everyone out there who's saying, oh, how could we not have gotten that? Our middle linebacker hole is so massive. Yes, it is. But for the way this defense is built, the one we have is more important than the one from Buffalo. The safety Edmunds is more important than the linebacker Edmunds, period. And the reason for that is the one in Buffalo was the Bush of Buffalo. He ran around with his head cut off. He was out of position, not as much as Bush, well, who could have been, but he didn't bring it home. So I am not heartbroken that we have not signed a middle linebacker yet. I don't believe that it's something that really needs to be a higher priority than bringing back our Edmunds. Because what the Steelers essentially are asking their linebackers to do is not get caught up in the wash and bring home the easy tackles. That's exactly what our safeties are kind of built to do too. I mean, Minkah led the team in tackles 2 years ago because he just stepped up and did that. Granted, our middle linebackers didn't do anything, but there's nothing to say that he couldn't do that again. And I would prefer us to focus on bringing in Edmunds before we bring in the middle linebacker. That being said, I absolutely love the Kazee return. And the reason I do is because it's going to allow Minkah to become Troy again. Troy was able to do all of his stuff that God knows he did awesome things. But he was only able to do it because he always had a good center fielder behind him. Kazee is fast enough to do that, and he's really going to open up the potential of this. And I know we had very similar conversations to this entering last offseason, and then Kazee got hurt. That's a risk. I mean, that's a risk of the signing. But when he is right, if you can let Minkah go crazy and we can get another safety to take the tight end out of the game, and again, my vote is still for Edmunds. But if we can do that, Minkah in the slot. Minkah's now playing around the line of scrimmage. He's got that extra blitz potential. I mean, what are you going to do if you have Highsmith, TJ, and Minkah with whatever 2 defensive linemen on down giving you a 5-man blitz like that? You're going to get sacked. And it's going to be absolutely fantastic. So with that being said, I really, really love that. And the other thing that, needs to be in here, with Patrick Peterson being an absolute blackout, which I believe he will be on the number 1 receivers, the exception of Cincinnati, there's not a whole lot of teams on our schedule here who have a viable number 2. Cleveland doesn't. God knows Baltimore doesn't even have a number 1. But that doesn't allow Minkah to basically do whatever he wants. And, ooh, is that going to be fun. If you guys are in the IDP leagues, man, take Minkah right now. We just gave himself the pathway to greatness that Sutton couldn't have. So overall, do I wish we had Sutton? Yes. Do I want to pay a slot corner $11 million a year? No. Am I worried about the longevity of Patrick Peterson? Absolutely. But given this year, entering into 2023, when we hit that field in September, the Steelers are an on-the-field better team with Patrick Peterson covering up the number 1 receiver instead of Sutton. It's just a fact of life. It's an upgrade, and that's something I'm very excited for. I mean, this guy has it all. Granted, 32, the speed can fall apart at any point, and I will be the first to admit I'm wrong if that's what happens. But this moment in time, I see this as something that can be building upon, something that can make things better. And again, I wish I had the versatility, but if we can take Chase out of the game, Sutton couldn't do that. And there's no way around that. Cincinnati whipped us 2 years ago, whipped us last year in the second game, and they almost came back in the first one. We don't have an answer for Higgins and Chase unless TJ's destroying Burrow. We now have a hope that we have an answer. And to me, that's why I just came full circle in this video. Give me Peterson for this year. Let's see what happens. And in the future, I'm going to be breaking down the positions I don't think we ever should draft. But that is a conversation for then. Let's get Peterson going. Let's give him a chance here, Steelers Nation. I think it's going to be a win. I think it's an upgrade definitely for this year. And again, even if we're wrong, it's basically a 1-year contract, and we move on to the next year. Because we were never going to marry Cam Sutton the way that Detroit just did.